you have to have this propensity to be slightly early before the mass market of other investors realize that something is important. You actually can do an incredible job of risk management by preserving an incredible amount of the upside of making an investment where you can generate these crazy returns, but where your downside is still 1x and you're really not losing that much money if you're wrong.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to reveal how Chamath Palihapitiya managed to acquire his wealth. In this video, he will reveal the hidden steps that he used to maintain a profitable investing portfolio, while also briefly touching on the SPACs, what are people getting about them wrong, and what is right. Chamath Palihapitiya is a venture capitalist, engineer, SPAC sponsor, founder, and CEO of Social Capital. Palihapitiya was an early senior executive at Facebook, working at the company from 2007 to 2011. Over the years, he managed to collect nearly $1.2 billion net worth and is still crushing it with his investments. In today's video, we will see how did Chamath manage to collect huge amounts of money, what are his strategies, and what is the main point of focus for new and advanced investors. Before we go on with the clip, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. Now let's see what Chamath has to say.
Well, the path before I think is almost as important. So I was born in Sri Lanka, and I grew up there until about the age of 6 or 7, and then my parents moved to Canada, where my father worked in the embassy. And when it was time for us to go home, so 4 years later, when I was around 11 years old, he filed for refugee status because there was a civil war in the country, and we stayed. And so I was very much a product of the Canadian public school system, which really taught us a lot about STEM. I think they really valued science and math and education and computer science. I was also the byproduct of a program that the Ontario government had to help at-risk youth get jobs. They helped me get a job at a really great up-and-coming technology company in the area called Newbridge Networks, which was started by a very prolific entrepreneur, Terry Matthews. And so all of that sort of really bred in me a desire to do something technical, and I was really inspired by Silicon Valley. And so I would read all the magazines and understood all the characters, and so I did a degree in electrical engineering. I really had no idea how to get down to Silicon Valley. And so my first job was in finance, actually, which doesn't make much sense. But at the time I thought, I'll learn how to invest. And I worked at an investment bank for a year, trading interest rate derivatives. It was incredibly important for everything I did later on. But then literally what happened was I got zero bonus that year, because my ego was a little out of control. And another huge blessing in disguise. And so I just applied to all these jobs. I said, I have nothing to lose to stay here. And I got a job at TIBCO, I think, and eBay, and a small music startup. And it was a 11 or 12-person company. And I thought, the music startup, I'll have a better edge because I'm one of 11 24-year-olds, whereas everybody else, I'd be working for much older people. I didn't really know the political dynamics. And so that's how my career started. I worked at this small company. It was part of AOL. I rose through the ranks at AOL. I ran the instant messaging business there. During that time, I did a big deal between AOL and Facebook. That's how I met Zuck in 2005, 2006, through my friend Sean Parker. And then I joined Facebook, and I worked there for 11 years. Oh, sorry, for 5 years until 2011. And then in 2011, I said, I had learned at that point how to build businesses and how to build startups within businesses, but I'd never started my own startup. And so, I kind of put these two passions together. I'd always wanted to be an investor. I'd always wanted to be in Silicon Valley. I really wanted to figure out how to start my own business. And so that's how Social Capital came together in 2011, June of 2011. And I've been doing it ever since now for almost 12 years. As an investor, I think in order to be extremely successful, you have to understand both your strengths, but also your biases. And then you have to tune your style of investing to a type of market that benefits from those strengths and where you can control your biases. So, in my example, very early on at Facebook, and then in the early parts of Social Capital, what I proved to myself is that I had quite a bit of a knack of being early to things, early to trends, early to ideas, being able to iterate and build, small versions of things that could then grow and become big things. And that gave me a lot of confidence that I generally could see a little bit around the corner before a lot of others. Not, years before, but months before, and that's enough of an edge, right? So that was a strength. My bias is really that I tend to be very dogmatic around certain ideas, and so I had to find a way where I could minimize my losses. And the different way of saying that is I had to always think about returns as the northern star, irrespective of what I invested in. And so technology investing, early stage technology investing, actually brings these two principles together into one art form or practice, which is you have to have this propensity to be slightly early before the mass market of other investors realize that something is important. And by being slightly early, so that's one of my strengths, and by being slightly early, you actually can do an incredible job of risk management by preserving an incredible amount of the upside of making an investment where you can generate these crazy returns, but where your downside is still 1x and you're really not losing that much money if you're wrong. And so it allowed me to manage to this tendency that I have to be a little sticky in things, and it allowed me to exploit the strength that I have of being a little bit early. And so that's how I run the business. For me, the Northern Star is returns. You must generate best-in-class returns across vintages, across asset classes, across security types, and that is the key differentiator of people that are exceptional. And that's what I would aspire to be able to look back and say to myself is that I'm really good at this craft. And I think in another 10 years, I'll know whether I'm really good or not. Well, I think it's really important to recognize that, again, for me, I am a broad-based investor in technology. I do early stage investments, late stage investments, crossover investments, and in some select cases, public investments. But the unifying theme are twofold. One is that I try to partner with really compelling entrepreneurs that I believe have the potential to build something great. And number two is I try to underwrite a business that is early in a theme that is much, much bigger than themselves, right? Which can create a lot of value. So SPACs, as an example, was in a moment where it was very clear to me that there are some exceptional businesses that needed a large quantum of capital to achieve their goals. And if they achieved their goals, it would be highly disruptive in their category. But that the IPO process and other capital raising processes were broken for these companies. And so, I took a product, a SPAC, off the shelf, dusted it off, learned about it, executed a transaction with Richard Branson for Virgin Galactic, which was quite successful, and gave that company the quantum of capital that they would need to build the space business that they had envisioned. And then I subsequently did it for a few more companies like Open Door and SoFi and Clover. The problem is that I think people misunderstood what I was doing and interpreted it as essentially, a very simple mechanism to capture some economic value. And the minute that happened, it made that asset class extremely difficult in order to transact. It had low investor trust, and frankly, it had low deal quality. So we are now in the second phase of any market. Phase one, there are the early kind of people that go and pioneer something. In phase two, you have a ton of fast followers. But at the end of phase two, you also have a washout. And we're in the middle of the washout period where you have to get all of that fast money out of a market. And time will tell whether SPACs will have a phase three. But in phase three, you will slowly rebuild credibility with a handful of practitioners that know how to apply their craft.
And that's it for today. What do you think is the most necessary thing when it comes to successful investing? And do you agree with Chamath? Let us know your thoughts down below. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. This was Investalence, and we'll see you in another clip.